On today's show, with the Capitals struggling on their recent road trip, it's a good thing that Alex Ovechkin will be returning soon.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the Capitals struggling as of late. I know it's a bit of a foreign subject talking about the Capitals this year, as they have been pretty lights out, but dropping back-to-back games against Dallas, against the Blackhawks. I guess it's a good thing that the Great Eight will be returning soon. I'll talk about that. A little bit later, I'll talk about the third line. In which player gives the Capitals the best option? Is it Hendrix LaPierre or Jakub Vrana? What did the statistics show? Then in the final segment, I'll talk about ultimately what went wrong on the Capitals' recent road trip. But just to get it going here, talking about the Great Eight as he edges closer and closer to returning. A positive sign, all things considered. And the Capitals have played well in his absence, but I think it's not just about missing his goal scoring. I think that it's also about missing his leadership. And Tom Wilson has done a good job in the Great Eight's absence, but I think with having Ovi on the team, his goal scoring, his leadership, the Capitals will be in a much better position. So, as you all know, Ovi suffered that fractured fibula on November 18th. Time flies. It just seems like it was yesterday. But the good news is that he's making impressive strides towards getting back on the ice. Good thing. We've seen him get in work. He was on the ice shortly after the injury, which is a positive sign. And I think speaks volumes about Alex Ovechkin, is he's not the guy that's going to push the easy button, milk this injury for all it's worth. He really wants to get back out on the ice. And now a report suggests that we might see Ovechkin return just before or shortly after the holiday break. And if you're asking me, it couldn't come at a better time, as, again, it's kind of a strange thing to talk about, but the Capitals struggling in their last 2 games. All things considered, this year, this team has been lights out, so it will be a good thing to see him back. Now, the return timeline, Pierre LeBrun from The Athletic recently shared that Ovi could potentially start skating again shortly after the break. With the team, that is, maybe even sooner. His return is highly anticipated, of course. We know what he means to this team. We know he's chasing down the great one, Wayne Gretzky, but not just by fans, but the entire team, as he continues his historic chase for Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal-scoring record. So it's exciting. He was getting in a little bit of work, skating on his own, and then Nicholas Backstrom was feeding him some shots that he was firing on net. But all of this is just a positive sign that he will be returning much sooner than I think a lot of us thought. I think, pretty much with the projection. However, it just seems like everything has gone along much quicker than it has. And I think it's a good thing. And I think a lot of that has to do with how well the Capitals are playing. Now, there's a real chance he could be back in action when the Capitals face off against the Toronto Maple Leafs on December 27th. Right after the NHL takes its scheduled hiatus from December 24th through the 26th. And I think a good time for the Capitals to rest, do a hard reset in their brain to get ready for the next part of the season. And, being able to hit the ground running potentially with Alex Ovechkin on the ice is a good thing. Now, initially, the Capitals had projected a recovery timeline of 6 weeks, which places Ovi's potential return window between December 19th and January 2nd. And I think it's going to be a little bit sooner than later, just based on the progress that we've seen thus far. But I think the important thing in all of this is that we don't want to rush Ovi back. I want to see him on the ice Friday. But that is not what is best for the grade 8. So with each passing day, positive signs continue to emerge as he improves. And I'm going to go ahead and say that it was a good, worthwhile thing to see what this team is made of in his absence, as we know that he's under contract for only one more season. And then it is going to be a brave new world, if you will, unless Alex Ovechkin signs an extension, that it was a good thing, I guess, to take a sneak peek and see what this team is made of. And Mike Brem from USA Today noted that Ovechkin is back practicing with the team while wearing a non-contact jersey, indicating he's making great progress, as we know that as well. But it's all a part of the process. And again, I'm just happy it wasn't his knee that was injured. And we could very well be talking about Ovi being out for the rest of the season, and that would really set back his chase of Gretzky and ultimately helping the Capitals do great things. Spencer Carberry also updated us on Ovechkin's recovery, stating that he is fully integrated with the team and is on the road to participating fully in practice. So positive signs for Ovechkin as he is ramping up for making his triumphant return. Now, the next step will allow him to engage in contact drills, getting him one step closer to returning to game action. So it's exciting, and it's going to mean a roster move. And I'll talk about some roster questions in the next segment, but this team, other than these last two games, has been playing very well. It's going to be a little bit different. I remember, a couple seasons ago when Nick Backstrom was injured and John Carlson, where they missed a substantial amount of time, that then you see them reintegrated into the lineup. It kind of screws up the balance, the pH balance, if you will, of the team. What will it mean having Ovechkin back in the lineup? And ultimately, what will it mean for the lines? Will it just mean the Capitals reverting back to what it was before he was injured? It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Now, this season, Ovechkin has been nothing short of phenomenal, scoring 15 goals in just 18 games. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of Ovechkin we get in his first game back. Is he going to hit the ground running, or is there going to be a bit of a lag? It's interesting. Now, this puts him in a fantastic position to continue chasing the all-time goal milestone. Currently, he sits at 868, just 27 away from surpassing Gretzky's legendary record of 894. Now, if he maintains this scoring pace, we could witness history during this season. It's going to be a little bit tight. Initially, it was projected that it was February or March. It's going to get pushed out a little bit. And let's just hope, knock on wood here, that the Capitals stay healthy other than Ovechkin, and that also that this team continues to play well. Those will all be things that will help Ovi in his great chase. Now, I will have you guys covered, of course, the entire way about Alex Ovechkin, his return, when we expect to see him. But excitement abounds to have him back in the lineup, as, again, this team has played pretty well in his absence, save the last couple games here. But I think this team always performs that much better with him in the lineup. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Hendrix LaPierre and Jakub Vrana. Which is the best option for the Capitals on that third line? I'll discuss next. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pickmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out you can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. This week on Prize Picks, I'm eyeing the hockey board looking for Dylan Strome for more than 4 shots on goal and Tom Wilson for more than 1 assist. It's so simple to make my picks and have fun with friends while potentially cashing out. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game. The World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can help you find the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 45 years of experience helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen of the day. All right, in this next segment, we're going to talk about a topic that is one of the loose ends, I think, for this team, and that is Hendrix LaPierre or Jakub Vrana, who ultimately gives the Capitals the best chance at winning. And we've seen LaPierre in there for quite a bit. We saw Vrana earlier in the season. Who gives the Capitals the best opportunity? Well, if we want to take a look at statistics alone, and see who is the best option, Jakub Vrana this season in 18 games played has 4 goals and 4 assists. That's good for 8 points, of course. Just a little history on Jakub Vrana, 6 foot, 190 pounds, drafted 2014, 13th overall, first round, 13th pick. So pretty good. So keep that in mind as far as his stats are concerned, 4 goals and 4 assists. Now let's take a look at Hendrix LaPierre. Little history on him as well. 6 foot, 2020 Washington 22nd overall, first round, 22nd pick. In this season, in 24 games played, 0 goals, 6 assists. Now, again, to go back to Jakub Vrana, in 18 games played, 4 goals, 4 assists. So the question remains, why does it appear that Hendrix LaPierre is getting more playing time? It is a bit mercurial, isn't it, at the end of the day? So let's go back to what Spencer Carberry said. He said, quote, "I think it's just with V. There's the give and take," Carberry said pre-game. He's got the speed, the offensive ability, the shot, and then he has to really work on his game without the puck, and that's always been his whole career. So when you're creating enough to offset the without the puck play, we're in a good spot. You put him with some misses defensively, but when the ledger starts to move the wrong way, that's when we have to back it to even. And he also said, quote, "That's where I feel like we're at. There's just a few plays a game defensively where we're going to get exposed, and it's costing us in certain situations. And if you're not creating and scoring and creating a ton of opportunities, even in his limited ice, then the ledger becomes unsustainable from a coaching standpoint," unquote. So I think when you take a look at it, it's not his goal scoring per se, but they want to see a lot from Jakub Vrana. They want to see him generating chances. They want to see him scoring goals. But if you take a look at it just merely statistically, well, Jakub Vrana is doing better. And, it's one of the things that I wouldn't be surprised if the Capitals address between now and the trade deadline is solidifying that third line. I guess you could make the argument that Miroshnichenko, once Alex Ovechkin comes back, could be that answer, right? But you take a look at it. LaPierre has been inconsistent, and Jakub Vrana, while it's a feel-good story, would he be a better option than Miroshnichenko once Ovechkin's back in the lineup? So those are all interesting storylines to follow this year as we go along. As there's not a lot of loose ends, I think that all things considered, the Capitals are playing very well. But that one thing in particular is one of the loose ends that I think the Capitals have to consider. Now, you take a look at the Capitals, and they played well with Hendrix LaPierre in the lineup, and ultimately why I think they didn't go back to Jakub Vrana. I think it's the adage of if it's don't fix it, if it's not broken. And well, the Capitals were winning a lot of hockey games. Why do we want to upend everything by putting Vrana back in the lineup? I know we saw him here recently, but the question was from quite a few Capitals fans is why do they keep going with LaPierre? And it's one of the things that Alan May said as well is he's not moving his legs as well as he did last season. And ultimately why he got to doing great things. But, you take a look at it. Hendrix LaPierre, I think that the hope is that he's going to mature into something more. Again, 2020, 22nd overall in the first round, and taking a look at the back of his hockey card, the Jack A. Butterfield Trophy AHL Playoff MVP last season. I think that ties into it. I think that the hope is that the ceiling is higher on Hendrix LaPierre if you want to remove this year's statistics from the mix. Because if you're just looking at it, apples for apples, you're just taking a look at them, statistically speaking, then Jakub Vrana is the better option. I just think that they think that the overall ceiling on Hendrix LaPierre is going to be better at some point. Now, the hard part about Hendrix LaPierre is that they've tried and tried and tried, and he just doesn't seem to gain a foothold in the NHL. He makes improvements, and, you take a look at it, his game has grown, was key with the Hershey Bears last season in the Calder Cup win, but hasn't really done the thing that, let's say, Connor McMichael has done, where Connor McMichael struggled, but now he has a firm foothold. That, oftentimes, we talk about Connor McMichael and Hendrix LaPierre, or we did a couple seasons ago in the same sentence because they were kind of rising through the ranks at the same time. And for the longest time, it seemed like their trajectory was somewhat similar. But Connor McMichael this season has shot to the moon. And Hendrix LaPierre, well, he's kind of meh, and you take a look at it. And if you take a look back on Spencer Carberry, and his thoughts on Jakub Vrana's play, even in training camp, as he said something to the effect of, it's okay. It wasn't anything real standout for him. And I think to a certain extent, that impression that was made on Spencer Carberry hasn't left. And unless Jakub Vrana really grabs the bull by the horns and does something major, say he scored a hat trick or say he had consistent play in, a string of games, it's going to be hard to take that sour taste out of Spencer Carberry's mouth. But I think some of these questions are going to be answered. I talked about in the first segment that it's kind of a live stream of consciousness, if you will, in this segment here, is that I think that it is probably a good chance that it could be Miroshnichenko in the mix. Jakub Vrana will end up going back to being a healthy scratch, and I don't know what that means for LaPierre. In a lot of ways, I think that the Capitals are running out of options for LaPierre. I think that he has done what he could do in Hershey, and we've seen him. We've tried to retread that tire again, and again. And it just, like I said, there's no foothold there. There's no, like, he's taking incremental steps up. So I think that is the difficult position that the Capitals find themselves in. Now, he has been involved in generating chances on that third line, Hendricks LaPierre, that is, with Eller and Mangiapane. But I still think we need to see more. Just like on the third line, when we saw Scarbosa in there for a while, and we thought, well, is that going to be the answer? And then the Capitals went out and acquired Lars Eller back, and that seemed to fix things. But I still think that the third line for me is still a bit of a work in progress. That's my hunch as I record this now, is that when Ovechkin makes his return, it's going to be Miroshnichenko in there. Vrana will be the healthy scratch. And then, I hate to say it in a lot of ways, I think that, LaPierre at some point is going to be an expendable piece. We've tried it. And it just has not worked. That at some point the Capitals could view him as expendable. Again, you take a look at him historically in his time in the NHL. The most goals he put up in the NHL was last season in 51 games played. 8 goals, 14 assists. You see what I'm talking about there? I know he's done great things in the AHL, but this is the NHL, kids, and we want to see a whole lot more from him. His career, 81 games played, 9 goals, 20 assists, 20, -3 rating. So let's take a look at total about Jakub Vrana in total in his NHL career. Again, it's not, the same as, their time playing in the bigs is different. I get that, but 385 games played, so markedly more, 114 goals, 103 assists. You could definitely make the case just based on statistics that Jakub Vrana right now gives the Capitals the better option between those two players. It'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds. That's my early favorite when Ovechkin comes back, though, that it'll be Miroshnichenko in the mix when it's all shakes out. All right, so coming up here after the break, I will take a look back on this last road trip for the Capitals. I'm talking specifically about the game against Dallas, the game against Chicago, what went wrong, and what needs to change. I'll break it all down next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And listen, guys, there's a ton of football that's being played on Monday, Sunday, Thursday. It's going to be Saturday here, and some of those games you're into and some of them you're not. But if you want to get real interested, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, they got all that much more exciting. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's take a look back on the last couple games here where the Capitals dropped back-to-back games for only the second time all season. Very uncharacteristic, I guess I'm going to say, that the Capitals had a rough stretch there. So talking about the matchup against the Stars, the Capitals rolled into America Airlines riding an impressive 10-game road winning streak and a 9-game point streak. There's a lot of talk out there if they're going to be able to keep continuing with their success on the road, trying to break that long stretch of games with consecutive wins, but we know that was broken now. However, they were up against a tough team, Dallas. And one of the things that Spencer Carberry said is the Capitals were at the top of the Metro, right? Top of the Eastern Conference, with the Jets as the best in the NHL, that a lot of teams out there wanted to knock the Capitals down a couple pegs because who do you think you are? We're going to take care of you now. However, when they were up against a tough team, Dallas had a rock solid home record, 13-3-0, and hadn't allowed an Eastern Conference team to leave their arena with a win in over 9 months. Now, first period, things started off on a high note for the Capitals. Dylan Strome opened the scoring with a nice goal, capitalizing on that quick line change that caught the Stars off guard thanks to a great setup by Taylor Radish. Unfortunately, the Capitals could not maintain that momentum. Dallas cycling was just too good, and Dallas is a good team. Make no mistake about it. I think that they are have an upwards trajectory. And you take a look at Ottinger, one of the best in the NHL, proved to be tough to beat. He came into the game with a perfect record against the Caps and posted an incredible .950 save percentage, finishing with 25 saves. Hard nut to crack, if you will. Jake Ottinger indefinitely is part of the secret sauce of the Stars' success. Strome was the only player to get it past him, and it was a real struggle for the rest of the team. So what worked well for Dallas? Why did Dallas walk away victorious? Rope Hintz had a standout game with Dallas, scoring 2 of their 3 goals. Now, an unfortunate bounce. You hate to see these things. Rasmus Sandin's glove allowed Bichelle to score quickly that widened the gap. And I think that was the momentum that definitely shifted in Dallas's direction. The night was frustrating, for the Capitals, especially on the power play, where they couldn't capitalize on any of their 4 chances. Special teams, I've talked about it all season. You need to make the most of your opportunities. I know it's easier said than done, but your NHL players, you need to do it. Now, the Stars have the league's best penalty kill at 90.5%, which undoubtedly impacted the Caps' ability to score. So with that said, again, easier said than done, but the Capitals have to find a way to get it done. Now, talking about coaches' insights, head coach Spencer Carberry shared his perspective after the game, citing some positive despite the disappointing results. He noted, I don't mind our process tonight at all against a really good team, but emphasize that the power play definitely needed work, unquote. So you take a look at it, it was a game that the Capitals struggled in. It was a really good Dallas team. I think that Dallas is going to work their way up the standings. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the NHL, but that doesn't give the Capitals a free pass not to play well. I mean, they're a good team as well, and one of the best in the NHL, and a lot of talent, and want to make it to the playoffs and win a Stanley Cup. And in order to do that, in order to make it to the playoffs, period, or make a deep push, then you're going to need to beat teams like Dallas. And historically, the Capitals have played well against good teams. It wasn't their night. So if we could have just, pushed that aside and said, hey, it was a one-off, it was a blip, that would have been okay. But then to add insult to injury, or injury to insult, if you will, the Caps fall to the Blackhawks, one of the worst teams in the NHL, which was nothing short of a whirlwind. After the loss to Dallas, the Caps were set to head straight to Chicago for back-to-back games, which are always tough in and of themselves. But a bit of an excuse, and I'm not a guy that really likes excuses, but, people in general, players are creatures of habit, and, well, the Capitals could not depart from Dallas and sleep in Chicago to get rested up. A mechanical issue with a charter flight left them stranded in Dallas, resulting in the arrival in Chicago just hours before puck drop. Generally, they like to land that night, get some rest, get some skating in. If in fact they do have a skate in the morning, get a good meal in, take a nap. Napping's very important as well before the game. Just the whole pH balance, if you will, of the team was screwed up. Talk about a rough start and kind of what pushed the Capitals back. Now, if they had landed in the Windy City that night and got a rest, would they have won the game? Maybe. I guess we'll never know. But despite taking an early 2-0 lead, the fatigue kicked in and the Capitals couldn't hold on. The second period was particularly tough. I think the Capitals started strong. I think they underestimated the Blackhawks, marked by a shocking 15 minutes and 38 seconds without a single shot on goal due to 3 minor penalties. Got to play smarter. Frustration was boiling over, that is for sure. The lack of discipline is not what you'd expect from this team. Historically, very level-headed. Carberry's frustrations were noticeable when the bench minors were handed out, especially the second one after the first. Clenched jaw, talking under his breath. What is going on? To do something that Spencer Carberry does, smarter. Points to his forehead, smarter. It's a very common thing. The message sent, message received. Need to play smarter. Now, the Capitals were not out of it. I thought that, just based on the script, the DNA of this year's Capitals team, I thought they would be able to rally the troops. But the final period collapse was the death blow as the game rolled into the third period. Well, the Blackhawks seized control, scoring 3 unanswered against Logan Thompson, no less, snatching the victory away from the Capitals. Just defied odds. The fact that it was LT in net and he didn't have a good game, or, the defense wasn't stout in front of him. It was definitely a bitter pill to swallow after such a promising start. Now, what did the players have to say? In a post-game interview, John Carlson laid it out honestly. He said, quote, "I think even the lead we were lacking, we had two really, really good individual plays, and the rest was just sloppy," unquote. That is from number 74 himself. Coach Carberry talked about it as well, echoing those sentiments, saying, quote, "I just don't think we had it from the start of the game right to the finish. We had nothing," unquote. That's a pretty scathing review of his own team, and that's reflective of him as well, as he is the head coach of the team. How are they going to turn it around? That is going to be the test. Is there resilience? Is there bounce back? Or is this team going to go into a tailspin? It's clear that fatigue and a lack of execution and the challenges of playing on the road were tough for the Capitals. However, this is a long season, and there's still plenty of hockey left to be played. The Capitals are not down. I mean, if you want to take a look at dumpster fires around the league, take a look at, New York. And there was another trade today, which I'm not going to go into. I might go into another podcast. But when you trade your captain, just say things aren't going well. We'll say that. I think that the seat for Peter Laviolette is extremely hot. So anyway, to get it back to the Capitals here, let's not fear. Things are much worse. And I know that's a cloudy way of looking at life. The Capitals had 2 rough games. Let's hope they can get it back into the win column as they take on the Carolina Hurricanes coming up. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals and making it your first listen of the day. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey, become a fantasy hockey expert, and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holney, and I'll talk to you again next time.